Today, in Richard is Never Ready for Anything, we're going to go over the soup or porridge that I devised that is shelf ready and cheap for bad situations, or more so just my standard lunch because let me say it again, cheap. For context, a few months ago, even before the whole coronavirus and everybody panicking over that, I dreamt up this kind of, I want to call it a porridge. And the whole idea is to go over three goals. One, it should be really cheap. Two, it should be shelf ready for a long time, so everything is dry food. Three, it should be very easy to make, specifically very similar to rice. And then four, relatively nutritious, and I guess there's taste. I eat it. The most important ingredients I start with is rice, specifically parboiled rice. Um, Under a year of shelf life, rice doesn't really matter, but one of the issues with brown rice, it can go rancid. Parboiled rice has had an additional preparation step before it's polished. I believe it's exposed to steam under pressure and it forces nutrients into the core kernel or grain. And I'm probably wrong about that, but it has the majority of the nutritional benefits of brown rice, slightly lower fiber content, and it has a much longer shelf life. So that is my selection for rice. I used lentils as my primary protein, so specifically red lentils. Brown lentils, the regular lentils, have a very earthy flavor, and it can be a little overbearing. So if you've had lentil soup with terrible lighting, you know what lentils taste like. Red lentils are more common in Indian dishes, and they don't have as much fiber, but they still are a good source of fiber, and the flavor is not as earthy. Barley, I consider the third major ingredient. These three are what I would consider core. Um, Barley survives the cooking process quite well and gives a really good texture, something that you can actually bite into. So it's still effectively baby food, but this takes it one step away from baby food. The other ingredients are kind of accessories I don't always add, and but pretty much anything that you can boil will be working with this. So textured vegetable protein is a soy product that is relatively cheap, at least at Winco, and it's very high protein, so that's very easy to add. Split peas are very similar to lentils in the cooking time and honestly almost everything. You'll notice that I don't have beans in these cans because beans usually you need to soak them like overnight or cook them for an extended period of time. And like I said, the goal is to mimic rice's cooking. And so that's why it's lentils and split peas for the legume. I've got some flax seeds, which I've tried. I'm not sure if I like them in this mixture. Beyond that, I have soup mixes, dry soup mixes. So this is tortilla soup, and this is French onion soup. I have large jars in the closet. This is curry powder. So if you just use the core ingredients, it's a relatively bland porridge. It's perfectly fine, but adding a serving of soup mix really does help the flavor. Lastly, there's also coconut oil, which I rarely use, but I have to mention all of these they have good contents of calories and fiber and protein, but there's almost no sources of fat. So if you really are paranoid and want to prepare, coconut oil is probably one of the best long shelf life oils, and it also tastes pretty good. However, I don't usually add it because this is not a disaster scenario. The first step is to add anything that needs to get washed. I'm going to use just a small coffee cup as my measuring device. You could use like a half a cup. You could weigh this out, but usually by volume is just faster if it's less precise. So, coffee cup worth, it's 1 part. Four. It's a little bit fuller than I originally intended, but these are the dry grains. They don't really get washed before they get sold, so let's rinse them in the sink. Running with warm water, just kind of mix them about, preferably in a larger bowl than this. In the cooking vessel, because of course that's going to be big enough, put everything. And now you can see how milky this looks, and that's just kind of general dirt. So stir it about, make sure it's loose, and to the best of your ability, pour it out to and avoid spilling the ingredients. All right, good enough. All right, so that was the rinsed pulses. The only things I really want to add now is the soup mix and the TVP, textured vegetable protein. So today I'll be going with a simple cup of textured vegetable protein. So that's number 5. And then soup mix. This is the one thing that you can't really add just one part of. You need to approximate it to the volume you're making. I like to say about 20%. So in this scenario, that would be 1 large cup. Honestly, it's probably just going to be this entire bag. All right. So now, including the soup mix, I'm up to about 6 or 7 parts dry. That means I want about 14 cups of water. Too much water is better than too little. In order to make this hot, we're running the pressure cooker. I think I mentioned this earlier, I have used a rice cooker with success. I say that cautiously because I've also broken my rice cooker and it doesn't even cook rice anymore, but I don't think it's because of this soup. Either way, we're going to make it hot to boiling. And my technique with the pressure cooker and this is to get it to where it seals, turn it off the heat, and then just let it rest, because it's not so much the heat as the extended stew time. Still not hot, but let's give this a quick stir. The thing we're worried about here is if there's too much stuff on the bottom, it might burn. I've had that problem with chili. So I've reduced the heat to medium, gave it a quick stir, and watched it as closely as possible because that makes water boil faster. And I'll put a blankie on it. Maybe that will help keep the heat in. I would not advise the blankie with a gas stove or an electric stove or ever. We're at temperature, buttons up. So now I'm going to just turn off the heat before it turns into a literal bomb and go play video games for an hour. Now that the pressure is gone, the little button's down, we can unlock this guy and reveal a big plate of mush. And it smells smells like soup. That's a strong smell. It's probably garlic. So this is the consistency that we're talking. It's porridge, effectively. Oh, does that not look appealing? Like I said, effectively baby food. But hey, it's cheap. It'll store forever, and it's gonna be my lunch.